The Mark Twain quote, continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. So, you always want to try and make small improvements day after day, and eventually you'll see, the big improvement in the end.
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. I am really happy to have Carleton Birk on the podcast today. Carleton, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely our pleasure. It's the Made in America podcast, Carleton. So we always start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
So at Birk Manufacturing, we're a thermal solutions provider. So we design and manufacture flexible heating elements made out of silicone and butyl rubber, Kapton and polyimide. We also make rigid heaters out of mica and cartridge heaters. We have a full line of temperature sensors, so RTDs, thermistors, thermocouples. We also make wiring harnesses, so cabling, shielding, twisted pairs, shrink sleeving. And add terminals and connectors. And next year, we're going to be introducing controllers to control the heat that we provide. So we put all those components together. We are a engineered thermal solutions provider.
That's pretty cool. Lots to unpack there.
Sure, yeah.
I actually really love how you threw that all out. That was really cool. Why do you do it?
It sounds cliche, but we're passionate about what we do. From the very beginning, my father started the company. He worked at a manufacturing company that made a product very similar and thought he could do a better job, and was passionate about that. And today we make products that go into devices that are saving people's lives, that are mission critical, flight safety critical. And we're passionate about our craftsmanship and the reliability of our products because they save people's lives.
That's really cool, man. Your dad thought he could build about a mousetrap. Sounds like he did, and you're carrying it on. So I know we've got a bunch of different things we're going to talk about today, but let's want to start with the background of sort of the company. You mentioned your dad founded it. Maybe walk us through sort of the Birk Manufacturing origin story, if you would.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Right out of high school, my father worked for a manufacturer that made power resistors, so dissipating a lot of power and using a heater to do that. He was really
dissipating power with a heater. I don't get it.
So basically creating a resistor. So you're offloading a lot of power, and that creates heat.
Yeah. So the resistor essentially generates the heat. So by reducing the power, now the byproduct of that is heat.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yep. And he was taking drafting classes at Three Rivers and was just really interested in the product and had some ideas to improve the way it was made, and ended up having an argument with the owner of the company and ended up quitting. He took a loan out from his parents, my grandparents, and they had to take a home equity line of credit out of their house because they didn't have the money to loan. And he rented 1,000 square foot facility in Stonington, Connecticut, bought a few pieces of equipment, and hired a friend that he met at drafting class in Three Rivers and started making wire wound silicone heaters. There's a few things that were similar to screen printing t-shirts. So he made t-shirts on the side for friends and family and local events. And
anything to help pay those bills.
That's right. Yes. After a few years of modest income, we moved to Old Saybrook, a 10,000 square foot facility in Old Saybrook. And that's really where the company took off. So in the mid 90s, we created our first website and got a big order from IBM from the website.
Really?
Yeah. Funny story about that is, we got the order through a fax machine, and back then fax machines printed on direct thermal imaging paper.
Yeah, the roll, if anyone remembers.
That's right.
Those, and it would come out, and like if you weren't there, it would roll up out of the machine.
Right. Yeah. He was so happy about getting that order, he made a photocopy of it, and it turned black. The entire order. He lost all of the information, so he actually had to go back to the customer and ask for him to send it again. Another funny story about that is they were so celebrating. They went to the steak loft and had dinner and ate so much that they couldn't make heaters, so they had to start the project the next day.
Well, you got to celebrate those wins. That's right. It sounds like your dad had that in him. Yeah. That's a big move, 1,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet.
Yep.
How big is from those humble beginnings? How big is the company now?
So we have about 45,000 square feet. So in 1998, we found a vacant lot in East Lyme in an industrial park and built the building that we're in today from the ground up. I remember being out there cutting trees down and doing dump runs, clearing the lot, and Norman act as the general contractor to get the building built while we were still building heaters in Old Saybrook. So it was quite the time. We also had to get special permitting from the DEP when we moved into our East Lyme facility because we were doing chemical etching at that point. So when we were in Old Saybrook, we developed our etched foil heaters. It's different than the wire wound that we started with, and that involves chemical etching. So we had to get a special license from the DEP in order to do that chemical etching.
It's a bit of a project. Right there. You guys have like about 150 employees? Is
150 employees.
Damn, it's come a long way since the HELOC loan of 1989.
That's right.
So I just want to get into like your kind of background and your role in the business and stuff. But can we just rewind back to what you guys do exactly? So is everything about sort of this like power resistor at this point? Or are you guys like what is the crux of what you guys do from like an engineering thermal solutions perspective?
Sure. The thermal heaters are different than the power resistors in that you're sending power through the heater and creating heat. So we manufacture heaters that go into medical diagnostic machines.
Why does a medical diagnostic machine need a heater?
Great question. So we do make products for in vitro diagnostics where they're warming up blood to body temperature and then testing for infectious diseases. Hematology analyzers where they're analyzing blood. Catheters need heat. Dialysis machines. Histology equipment, and that's the study of tissue. So they're burning tissue and freezing tissue.
So all these like medical devices need a heater to provide heat to the item that you're working on. So in the case of like blood or tissue, you want to heat it to either body temp or maybe sometimes beyond that to see what happens. And your heaters are what's doing that?
Correct. Yeah, sterilization to sterilize instrumentation, also human skin. So there's heaters really everywhere. You could go.
It's just funny, right? Like you don't think. Well, yeah, right. I mean, right. You look around. It's just really for me. It's so interesting because everything that we use in this world, right, is pretty much manufactured. I mean, I guess maybe people use leaves for something, but generally speaking, everything we use daily, from clothes to shoelaces to our cell phones to industrial equipment to diagnostic machines, whatever. It's hard to think about when you go give blood or someone's doing like, do give blood for your annual physical. You show up at a place, they take your blood, you show up at our office, you get results. What happens in between there and all that goes into it, it's just so fascinating.
It is, it really is, yeah. Aerospace industry, so we're making heaters that are releasing solar panels to provide power for satellites. Battery packs, that's a big industry. So batteries perform better when they're heated and in a warm environment. Telecommunications, semiconductors, another big industry we're in. So semiconductors make integrated circuit chips for computers, cell phones, laptops, and the part of that manufacturing process is using precious gases, nitrogen, hydrogen, argon, and they're pumping all of these precious gases through the entire plant, and they need to control the volume of the gas, and we make a heater that goes into a capacitance nanometer that measures the flow of gas in these fabs.
Really?
Yeah, and they also have to do a burn-in test on these wafers. These wafers have thousands, if not millions, of microchips on them, and they need to see if they degrade under heat. So they do a burn-in test using our heaters. So the applications are really endless.
It is endless. So how do you guys like come up? I mean, obviously you've been in the industry for a long time. Do you have like a big engineering department that's constantly like looking at new products? I mean, some of the stuff you're in is fast changing, high tech stuff, right? I mean, medical equipment maybe changes, but maybe not as fast. But obviously when you're fabricating, printed circuit boards and chips, that thing's moving at the speed of light. How are you guys sort of staying up with like the latest and greatest technology?
That's a great question. So our customers really come up with all of the products. So we don't really have a product that we sell, an end product. And a lot of these customers are developing cutting edge technology. So they have a lot of engineers on their staff that know a lot about technology and a lot about heaters.
Yeah.
And they're basically telling us what they want, and we just manufacture it. And we've done that so many times that we've developed a expertise for that. So if a customer comes to us and says, hey, I need a heater, I'm not exactly sure what I need to heat this square area to this temperature in this amount of time, we've developed the process to come up with a heater and design a heater ourselves.
So the specs are coming from, or the need is coming from the customer,
Right.
and you guys are in a position to basically help design what that solution looks like, and then make it for them.
Correct.
And because you're just doing all similar type heaters, is that why you can be in so many different industries? Because you're not in just medical, you're not in just aerospace. You guys have a lot all over across the board.
That's right. Yeah, we're well versed in all the medical and aerospace requirements, but we are experts in just making heaters. So our staff, knows what's required to have a medical product go out to market, or the reliability of an aerospace product. But our main focus is knowing our product very well in and out, and it's really up to our customer to kind of dictate where that product is going and how it's going to go to market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here you are, second generation. Did you always want to be in the business?
I did, yeah. So
Really? From the beginning?
From the beginning, yeah. So when I was young, my father was, working hard starting the company, and so time with my father was time at the shop with our family dog.
Do you remember? Because you were pretty young when he started, but do you remember those startup days?
I do. I remember being there, playing with the family dog, talking to the employees, sweeping the floor even, and making a little bit of extra income as a kid, doing some chores around the shop.
Little scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I was old enough to actually work, I worked on the assembly line throughout high school. Then when I graduated college, I was actually in California at the time with a girlfriend of mine at the time, and I was doing sales for Birk Manufacturing. So trying to sell our product on the West Coast. And I was a fish out of water, didn't know what I was doing, and really wasn't getting much traction. And I got a call from Norman one day saying the current quality manager was leaving the company, and he was very nervous at the time because we were in the middle of getting our ISO 9001 certification, and there was a lot of things going on.
Quality manager is important.
Yeah, right.
That is an important position when you're going through that.
Right. So he's like, hey, do you mind coming back to Connecticut and working for me as the quality manager? And he's like, I think it would be a great fit. I think you have the right skills and personality for it. So took a leap of faith and moved back
across the country.
Yeah, and started as the quality manager and helped finalize the 9001 certification. And then a year later, we went for our medical certification, so ISO 13485.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you ran that program too?
Right. Yep.
Wow.
And then a couple of years after that, we got our aerospace certification, so AS 9100.
Wow, look at you. So you really able to sink your teeth into it, sounds like, and really enjoyed that sort of quality aspect in the business.
Absolutely. I'm kind of, Norman said that when I was a kid, I would line all of the Hess.
By the way, I probably should say Norman's your dad. I don't think we ever introduced that into the thing, but yeah, Norman Birk is your dad and the founder. Sorry, guys.
That's right. He just always saw me organizing things and putting things together in groups, and just thought I would have the knack for having a quality mind.
Yeah. How important is that quality mindset to the success at Birk Manufacturing?
It's what we do. We make a reliable product. Quality is built into the product. It's not something that we inspect for after the fact, and we really care about what we do. Everybody that works there. So quality is huge for us. And our products are going into, like I said, products that are saving people's lives, and so we want to make sure that quality
work every time.
That's right. Yeah.
So how long ago did you take over as president of the company?
So I've been president for 2 years.
Okay.
And in that time, we've grown 50%.
Really?
Yes. Yes, and I can't contribute that completely to me taking over. A major competitor of ours is having significant issues right now, and people are looking for heaters left and right. So
So you
it's
guys have
quite
been
the
able to
time.
pick up the slack.
Yeah, right.
So how have you been able to? Well, first of all, we should give you all of the credit. So for anyone that's listening, it was all Carleton that got it done. No, obviously kidding, but how have you been able to take on that level of growth in a time period where everyone's sort of fighting to find talent? I mean, did you have to expand the facility? Like how? I mean, that's a lot of growth in a short period of time.
It is, and it's been quite the challenge to say the least. And you hit the nail on the head. Trying to find people, trying to have the right space to manufacture the product. It's tough manufacturing in Connecticut, to be honest. It's hard finding people. It's not a lot of technical talent down on the shoreline, and we've used a lot of manufacturing resources in Connecticut, which has been great, great help for us. And a lot of the growth has been, like I said, it's been from a competitor having significant issues. So all of these customers that we've been trying to get into for years, banging on their door, they're all coming at the same time, and it's hard to try and balance that. So our lead times have increased, and we've seen a backlog that we're trying to get through right now. So,
well, listen, business is all about fixing problems, Carleton. So then there's the problems you want to be able to fix, which you're having, and then there's the problems you don't want to have to fix. So sounds like you're at least in that good spot. So what are you doing? Well, let me ask you the first question. Did you have to expand, or have you expanded the size of the facility, or are you just sort of trying to max out what you already have?
So during COVID, we had to spread everybody out. And at that time, I think we had about 120 people, and there was a building across the street that was vacant. So we signed a 5-year lease and spread people out over there. And when COVID was over, we infilled that space because the influx of work. And there was a vacant lot across the street as well that we purchased. And we're in the process of doing a feasibility study to see what kind of building we can build over there, what operations we want to move across the street, and expand our facilities. Wow. We're working.
Turns out that little COVID expansion had some side benefits later on, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
COVID, actually, we didn't lose a day during COVID, and a lot of our customers are in the medical industry, and we're really busy during that time. So we didn't skip a beat during COVID, and had actually a lot of opportunity come from that.
Listen, you guys are making the most of all the opportunities in front of you. So listen, everybody across the country is talking about the challenge of recruiting in manufacturing, and with all this uptick in business, have you guys changed your approach to manufacturing? There's your dad was a community college guy,
right?
We've got a lot of community colleges in Connecticut, and people studying. Are you guys engaged? Like, what are you trying to do to close that gap?
Great question. Yeah, so we are working with folks from UConn, from Quinnipiac, from Three Rivers, from Eastern, American Job Centers. Putting career fairs. Yeah, it's really quite difficult where we are in southeastern Connecticut. EB is taking up all the engineers and all the available workers. But we are starting to see that turn a little bit, and people that actually applied to EB are now leaving there because they're waiting for work, or it wasn't the right fit for them, so they're looking for like a smaller type atmosphere, company culture, and we're able to provide that, and it's a little bit different than EB. So
are you trying to use? Sounds like you're trying to use the size of the organization and the culture and the approach to be like a recruiting tool.
The culture. We're big on having fun. That's our rule number 5, is to have fun. We do a lot to give back to the employees. We have company picnics. We bring food trucks down. We go to Rocky Neck State Park and have a day off where people get paid, but we do fun games, almost like a field day. Every Wednesday we bring donuts and bagels in for everybody from Flanders Bakehouse. So the good stuff. We have tuition reimbursement, company sponsored benefit programs where we pay a significant portion of employees' benefits. So we really want it to be a place where people feel comfortable to come to work, feel like they have a voice, feel like they have a say, and really take care of our employees, so that we really try and push that culture. And you don't really get that in a big company like an EB. So that's kind of like our competitive advantage for sure.
Yeah, and you guys you're in a nice little bit of a sweet spot, right? Because you're big enough that you're not really small, and you're small enough that you're not really big. So you
Right.
kind of can occupy a nice little spot right there. In terms of like kind of work day and how you guys are structured, how do you try and make that like small company feel real in people's day-to-day lives outside of like a field day and all that nice stuff? How do you kind of connect with them? You said make them feel like they have a voice and an impact. How do you do that?
So about 10 years ago, we started on our lean journey, and that was huge for us, and it changed the way we do things. And with that lean journey, we had a lot of Kaizen events and a lot of buy-in from the shop floor, where people were coming together to do projects. Folks that had been, giving suggestions in the past were finally being heard. They were seeing things being implemented. So having that lean culture was really key to, having better communication, more efficient processes, and
Kind of like a win-win. You're getting better business output.
Right.
But people are feeling more engaged. And I think
Exactly.
that's a huge part of them feeling positive about where they work.
Yep, absolutely.
Were you part of getting that launched? Like, were you integrally involved in the launch of that lean culture?
Yeah, so during that time, I was the quality manager, and we worked with Constep on the lean implementation, and all of the managers went through continuous improvement certification champion program, CICC, and we realized that we needed a lean champion to really push the lean training throughout the entire shop. So I kind of transformed my role to quality manager to operations manager, and kind of, spread the lean training.
So did you made yourself that lean champion? Is that ultimately what you did?
Yep. Yeah, it was a kind of a consensus decision between, everybody in the shop and, Constep and myself. And we, I kind of put myself out there as a volunteer, and it kind of
worked.
Yeah, it took off.
How did you kind of walk me through a little bit? I think, a lot of people have been on this journey, but I think a lot of people also either have misstepped or want to get started. So just maybe walk through, like, how did you get it off the ground? I mean, you had a really, you sort of talked about it, but let's dig in a little bit deeper. Like, How did you get it off the ground? Where did you start, and how did you build off it?
We started with training, from Constep, having all the managers trained, having Kaizen events, having projects where people from the floor were volunteering to be on a certain project. We'd celebrate those wins.
When you started on those like little projects, right? And you got to start small.
Right.
Like, what was I know it's 10 years ago, so you may not remember, but do you remember like the first thing you guys did?
The first thing we did was map an order from when it came into the building to when it left. And we had one of those, construction site tickers to map the number of steps. And I think it was a mile and a half that the part traveled throughout the entire shop. Yeah, and we were really shocked by that and amazed by that. And we created supermarkets throughout the entire shop. So rather than starting from scratch, we already had kind of like a baseline for some of our core products. That was super helpful for us. Supermarket, yeah. So basically, rather than going to the inventory room and starting from scratch, we had a semi-completed part that can be used in multiple applications.
So just if I'm like reading this right, you're making whatever, I'm just going to make up numbers. You're making 50 different heaters, and 30 of them, the first 15 steps are the same.
Exactly.
So instead of doing those first 15 steps the first time, every time for all of those, you just did the first 15 and created a whole, like almost inventory map, and a big percentage of the heaters could start already on step 15.
Right, exactly. And then we have a few different flavors of the heaters that we make, and you're exactly right. So having a supermarket for those different types of flavors up into that point where it can kind of shoot off into other products is
Why is it called a supermarket?
Because you basically take things off the shelf and then you replenish the shelf with your
with whatever the backfill is.
Yep.
Was there any I'm sure you always faced resistance with people doing something different. So either maybe some employees were like, why are we doing this? Or maybe you had a challenge where you had to take people off the line, and then you've got production supervisors or people that are responsible for on-time delivery being like, Carleton, if we take these people off, how are we going to maintain throughput? Did you run into those challenges?
Absolutely. So yeah, Concept was very helpful in giving some of our training and tools to kind of overcome some of that, that mindset of fear and change. We created a Kaizen newsletter. So we made a company newspaper and kind of explained some of those changes. We celebrated our first win, at the first Kaizen event, and the successes of that to show the benefit of that. And that was really helpful for us. Another kind of transformation during the lean journey was going digital. So a lot of our stuff on the floor was paper copies, traveling to one part of the shop, having to get a manual signature on it. Now we're, mostly digital. So you don't have to go try and find that piece of paper, or it gets lost in the shuffle. And that really helped us become more efficient too.
A lot of these things seem like they're pretty significant upfront investments. I mean, the lean journey, maybe not so much in dollars, but certainly in time. Going digital is probably money and time.
Absolutely.
Any resistance from the old guard at Birk in making those investments?
No, he saw the benefit of it and saw the opportunity and knew that we kind of needed to get our act together in order to take advantage of that opportunity. So he was all for it.
And did you find that, you said something that I think is always great with change, which is do less, but get to a win faster, right? So, right. That way people can sort of see the success, and then a little bit of success builds on it instead of trying to do it all and waiting for success, a year down the line. Did you find that, sounds like you found that success early and built right on it very easily?
Yes. One of the biggest things that we've kind of had our motto around is the Mark Twain quote, continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. So, you always want to try and make small improvements day after day, and eventually you'll see, the big improvement in the end.
You're going to have to give me that again after. Continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection?
Correct.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to write that. I couldn't even write it that fast, but I'll get it from you afterwards. Good quote to live by.
Yeah, sure. Yep. And with our lean journey, we are at the pursuit of perfection, and the perfection does not exist. So it's a never ending journey.
Do you find that you have slipped backwards at all? Like, do you have to keep championing it, or has it taken on a life of its own? How does that play out? That
is a great question. So right around 2014, right at kind of about a year into our lean journey, I was graduating, getting my MBA, and I talked with my father about maybe taking another opportunity at another company. And he thought it was a great idea, actually, and for my own personal development, and potentially maybe coming back to Birk Manufacturing and, taking what I've learned and implementing it at the company. So after getting my MBA, I worked at Wire Mold in West Hartford, actually, and they were big on their lean journey. And learned a lot there, and actually went to another company in East Hartford that made chemicals for a year, and found my way back to Birk Manufacturing. And when I came back, I did see that we had slipped, and some of the things that we had put into place were no longer there. So my big role in coming back to Birk Manufacturing was a senior project manager to kind of reinvigorate the lean mindset.
Wow. So, I mean, when all of my prep and our previous conversation, this didn't come up. So obviously I got to work on my prep a little bit better, but, how long had you been there before you decided to leave? And I'm just like, I'm blown away that your dad kind of was supportive.
So I was the quality manager for 4 or 5 years and the operations manager for 2 years. And like I said, I had just finished my MBA, and my MBA was a cohort full of people. So I was in this class for 2.5 years with these folks. And I saw them, kind of taking jumps and leaps and seeing other opportunities. And, I'd been at the company for
your whole life,
right?
Basically.
My whole life. So I wanted to see what the other side was like, and just had an interest in that, especially with seeing so many people, taking that leap. and just had a really candid conversation with my father one day. And, he thought about it. And at first he was like, yeah, I don't know why you'd really want to do that. You have a great opportunity here. And I don't know if he took offense to it, but and we kind of circled back, and he was like, you know what? I think, for your own personal development, go kind of see what's out there, and maybe, you can learn a few things and bring them back to the company. That would, be really great.
Was that a difficult conversation for you to have?
It was. Yeah. I kind of went back and forth. Do I really want to do this? Is this something that I even want to really approach my father about? Who
did you use as a sounding board to prepare? I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes. Sure. And clearly you respect your dad. Clearly you supportive of what he did. You were a part of it. Like, I just got to think you want to do it, but you got to be nervous as hell.
Oh yeah. Super nervous. Probably the most nervous I've ever been.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Leaving something so great and leaving the family to do my own thing. And it was.
Who was your sounding board? Like, when you're thinking about doing it, were you using your MBA cohort friends? Did you talk to your mom? I don't know if you had like
everybody. Yeah, my mom, my cohort friends, my professors. Yeah, my friends, my coworkers, people at Birk Manufacturing.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
And so you're getting one up, because I can just imagine it's not just that you're leaving, but like. People in the company got to be like, whoa, dude, Norm's son's taking off. Like, what is happening? Yeah.
Yeah. There wasn't too much of that, because actually things were really good at that time. It's not like the company was struggling or like there was bad things happening. So that's another reason why it was like, why are you doing this? Are you really sure you want to, take this leap? So it was.
How did he take that first? Do you remember that first conversation? Did you just blurt it right out? Like, hey, Dad, I'm thinking of leaving?
Yeah.
You did? Yeah. Just hit it hard. Like, better one shot to the head than die by 1,000 cuts.
It was the end of the day, and I went right into his office, and we were talking about something else, and I was just kind of like off the cuff, just like, well, I'm thinking about other opportunities, now that have my MBA and looking at other things. So, I don't know.
How did he take it?
Like I said, he was, I think, a little bit, he was definitely taken off guard, but I don't know if he was, took offense to it, or, he didn't really kind of lead on to that, but I could kind of tell that it like really kind of.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I think putting myself in his shoes, I think I'd be a little bit hurt, emotionally. Did you already have the gig at Wire Mold, or at that point you started looking to figure out what? I had some
tentacles out there trying to see what was out there, and I kind of had some traction.
Gotcha.
Some interest.
And so it's really interesting, right? Because you had already implemented lean, and Wire Mold, for anyone that doesn't know, they're very well known. Like, there's been books. Outside of just sort of the local ecosystem, they're known for that lean. That's what
drew me in.
I was wondering.
Yep. And they had an open position for a quality manager.
Got it.
Yep.
And so what was that like, kind of walking into that, which is a totally different business, much bigger business than you guys were at the time, much different place on their lean journey. You went from, tell me about it.
Yeah. So, at the time I left the company, I think there were about 100 people at Wire Mold. There's 500 people. And Legrand was moving into Wire Mold. So they were moving all of their corporate people to the building. Yeah. So there was times where I had to give corporate presentations up in their, big lecture hall to hundreds of people. And these are, PhDs and people that are, been at Wire Mold a long time. And
you're the young, fresh whippersnapper.
I was a fish out of water. Yeah. Coming from the family company. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. And it was quite the challenge. It's a union shop too. So that was, different. And it was very interesting. Yeah.
So how long were you at Wire Mold?
I was there for a year.
And what did you, thinking back on it, I guess you would say successful in terms of what you were looking for in that experience?
Sure, yeah. And they were actually trying to get their 9001 certification. So they were full on in a really big project. And it was it kind of took some stumbling blocks along the way and kind of some setbacks. So it was a difficult project to implement there. And
Did you learn a lot in that year?
I did. I learned a lot about business, a lot about working with people, and how to be a leader. And
Yeah, and then you pivoted to like a whole different thing. Now you're at a chemical company after that?
Yeah. So I to be honest, didn't really thoroughly enjoy the work environment there. You had to wear hard, toe shoes, and it was, very big, and giving those lectures, and didn't feel like I was getting much traction there. And had a friend of mine that worked at a family company in East Hartford that was significantly growing, and they were creating a new manufacturing site on the West Coast, and thought that it would be a good opportunity for me to kind of switch roles, because they're looking for an operations manager, and took another leap of faith, just trying another thing out.
How long were you at that place?
I was there for a year and a half.
And did you find that you got some good experience from that?
Yeah, I did. The owner of that company was very dynamic, and led the company very aggressively, and took me under his wing, and I learned a lot from him.
And was it back to Birk after that?
And it was back to Birk after that.
So what drew you back 2.5 years at the prodigal son returns? What drew you back?
I can actually remember it to this day. I was at a Christmas dinner with my whole family, and my sister mentioned something about potentially, me coming back to Birk Manufacturing. I had talked to my brothers and sisters, here and there about maybe coming back, and that, trying my own thing out maybe wasn't, the smartest move.
Grass turned out not to be greener.
Right. And they kind of really, pulled it out of me during a Christmas dinner. And then I started talking to Norman, and one thing led to another. And
back you came.
Back I came. Yeah.
When you came back, was it with the idea that you would become president, or just came back to do something different? What was your...
No, the idea was just to come back and help us out in any way I could. So that's why my title was senior project manager. So I was helping the senior management team out with kind of all the things that they were kind of struggling with.
Got it.
Yep.
And when did you sort of start when did it become clear to you that you were going to sort of get that president role? And
so a couple of years ago, Norman kind of semi-retired and is enjoying the fruits of his labor and enjoying life. And over time, I just was thrown into the role.
Yeah, and how's that been? I mean, it's a big job, right, in and of itself, and it probably has extra pressures when you're the son of the founder, and
sure.
It's got high visibility into like just the family and all that dynamic. Like how'd that play out for you?
Actually really well, because of the team of people that we have around me. I worked hand in hand on the production line with these folks, and have the history there, and have got the respect from them, and I think that was, helped a lot. Everyone was really happy to see me back, wanting to see the next generation take over. And there really wasn't a lot of closed doors or roadblocks to get over. And we have a really great group of people. The second employee that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast is still with us. We have really high employee retention. People have been there for 20, 25 years, and really care about what they do. So having that group of people around me was really instrumental in coming into this role and growing the company. I can't say enough about our people. We have a really great group of individuals.
That's fantastic, man. And obviously, wind at your back here with, the changes and the growth in the business. So of course, challenges we discussed, but a lot of great things happening at Birk Manufacturing, which is great to see. I'm going to take us to some wrap up questions, if you're all right with that.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, the first one's non-standard, but I did want to get it on here, which is the name Carleton is not a very typical name.
Sure. Yeah.
And you and I were talking a little bit about it, and it's a cute story. So I wonder if you'd share it with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in 1985. When I was born, I didn't have a name. They were kicking around a few different options. And my father was reading the sports section at that time. And Carleton Fisk was at the headlines. And he's like, "Hey, what about Carleton?" And my mom was like, "You know what? I really like that." And so I guess I was named after Carleton Fisk. I think 1985 was his best year. I think he had 37 home runs, and he was the catcher in August. He was the catcher for a really famous pitcher that had pitched his 300th game. And so he was the front and center on the sports page.
Yeah, back when we had a sports page, but that's really cool. And Carleton and I share an affinity to the Boston Red Sox. So
absolutely,
everyone knows about Carleton Fisk's famous home run in the late late 70s. So in the playoffs, so that's really cool. So if you had to do something, Carleton, other than be the president of Birk Manufacturing, it could be anything in the whole wide world, what would you do with your time?
That is a great question. You know what? I don't know if I've ever really kind of thought about that. We own a family pizza restaurant in downtown Niantic, Vincitoria Pizza, and I think it would be really cool to run a restaurant. I've always wanted to run a restaurant. I worked in a restaurant part-time in high school, and it sounds fun, but I don't know if it really is.
Well, that's all right. Maybe you're exactly where you're supposed to be. That's cool.
Yeah.
So obviously MBA, you're studious. Do you have a favorite business book or a favorite book that you kind of think about if you would recommend someone to read?
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is my favorite. Good to Great is another one that that I enjoy.
What is it about the 7 Habits that you found so fascinating?
I thought that it was interesting that Stephen Covey really kind of took his time to kind of dive into why those habits are so effective, and really enjoyed seeing kind of what that meant, because I really kind of gravitated towards those
items, yeah.
items,
And there's like me too. I could tell you like a process guy that sort of like dovetails right into that sort of like love of process that you definitely have. Yep. What's something, Carleton, that you learned early in your career, early in your life, that you think's helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
Relationships with people. And having a solid foundation that you can build on with, whether it be a friend, a coworker, a teammate, a life partner, and really having a common ground to make decisions, have dialogue, and really having those connections with people, I think, is what I've learned really young. My father was very dynamic, and he really took care of his people growing. That was the success of our company, taking care of people. And when I was younger and working on the assembly line, you could hear my dad coming throughout the shop, just of the laughter and the stories and people, having a good time. I really took that to heart, and have developed a lot of really great relationships in my life, and that's what's really important to me.
That's fantastic. What's something, Carleton, that you learned later in your life or later in your career that if you could go back and tell young Carleton, and if he had listened to you, it would have a real positive impact on him?
Try not to be so serious on so many things, and then everything is going to be okay. It's just trying to relax and
every little thing's going to be all right.
Be all right. Yeah.
Nice, dude.
If you work hard and you do what you're supposed to do, everything kind of will take care of itself.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I'm going to leave it right there. Carleton, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your journey to the audience. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.